She is an academician, entrepreneur, and a lifelong learner with 30 plus experience working with students of design, research, retail, industry, weavers, and artisans. She is a founding member of NIFT Hyderabad and a former director of Folkestone School of Design.
Our second panelist is Sri Amogha. He is a filmmaker and a graduate from Bilani and has 11 plus years of experience in film industry. He started as an assistant director from national award-winning filmmaker Shaikpet. His recent work as a director, writer for web series starring Trisha Krishnan, Ravindra Vijay and Jay Prakash is in its post-production phase and would soon be released in Sony Live.
Our third panelist is Akshay Verma Dattava. He is the co-founder and principal of architect Juxtapose. Juxtapose is a creation-oriented invested firm building and funding industry-transforming technology business. He believes there is a genuine power in choosing to do few things and doing them well.
The moderator for this panel is Nicholas Bharatwaj. He is the co-founder and director of Sri Amogha Junior College. He is a career counselor. He is committed to promoting students' mental health and enjoys his work truly.
And फिल्म मेकिंग हम तो एमपीसी के बच्चे हैं एमईसी के बच्चे हैं it is not so important. I think that is where my question will start. In the previous panel we had Sunil who is an engineer and in health tech now. Probably I can call it as a product design. A lot of times we feel creativity, sketching, painting, or dance or music. Lot of students feel they are not creative. How many of you feel you are not creative here? Okay, how many of you feel you are creative confidently? Great. So my first question to all the panelists here. You are assumed to be the creative people. What is creativity? Is it only the fields that you choose? Anyone might answer. Can we have another mic?
Good afternoon to everybody. This is a very, what do you call it, delicate moment. Everybody can be snoozing. So I would like to wake you up. Okay? The last benchers. Yes, wave. All of us. Yeah. Yeah, they're awake. Yes. Thank you, Niklesh. Creativity. I think everybody is creative. People who have raised their hands and said they are not creative, I don't believe. Don't you wake up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and do that hairdo in a certain way? And whenever you see a mirror on the bike or a scooter or a cycle, you go and do this, right? You know that a certain thing has to sit in a certain way to look better. And you are going to do that. You will go and pick up the best toothbrush for yourself. Why do you do that? And you want a certain kind of toothpaste. All of that, you said that, like, if you looked at toothpaste or tooth powder advertisements earlier, they said, oh my God, this is going to leave scratches on your teeth and all that. And now Colgate says, Koila acha hai. And then we go and buy Colgate Koila, Colgate charcoal, right? So each one of us want a certain thing, a certain way, to do a certain thing a certain way, or to make it look a certain way. I don't think if you're saying that you're not creative, I'm going to buy that. We are all creative. The only thing is maybe we are not designers, maybe we are not doing nice rangolis, we are not doing, fashion designing, or we are not doing product designing or service designing, but each one of us, whether or not you acknowledge it, we are creative. So take it from there, and people who want to pursue careers in creativity, careers in art and design is a different dimension altogether, which we will be talking about.
So, like ma'am rightly has pointed out, there's creativity in everything. Like, you go to your class, you go to your friend, and tell a story right away. Like, on the go, you're lying sometimes, right? There's a story that is there all the time. Maybe you go to your lecturer and say, I need a, I'm not coming tomorrow. There's a story there. And these are the stories that you have to gather. You know, the stories between friends, between all these people, the stories that you internally own it. You know, you think of a story. Maybe you think of yourself as a hero sometimes, or sometimes as a good friend to a hero. Your friend who is a hero. You know, these stories will develop your personality, and this creativity of like how you pursue, how you see yourself is itself creative, right? Like you're developing a story within it, and you are going to buy the story no matter what. And these stories are what will help you as you go forward, like as you go through your life after your 12th, or like not just in 12th. Like Sir was saying that I'm old and my story is done, like while pointing out to you guys. Even when people are like 50s, 60s, 70s, there are people who are coming up with new stories, developing new things. So there is no end to creativity. There is creativity is just there when they're babies. That's there when they're in their 70s, and one has to own on to it so that it can only better themselves in different aspects of life. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the invite of being here. So, coming to creativity, I mean, to be very honest, I was the more non-creative one in my family itself. Forget about this room. When I was a kid, I think my brother was a little more creative than me. But like ma'am and even so, mentioning about everyone being creative. You start understanding creative applications only at a later point. Like at this point, you are at a perfect age to start thinking about how we can use our creativity. For some people, it might be just sketching. For some people, it might literally be while playing a sport, doing something different, like doing something creative and different. So when you have all these different ways of thinking, right, it always opens up your creative mind. And everyone has it, like ma'am and sir were mentioning. Coming back to what is creativity, I think it's a different definition to everyone. For me, obviously, it's associated with my field. My job is to create beautiful buildings, create a good space. For example, all of us are sitting in this room, and there is a reason why we are elevated, and you guys are at a lower stage, so that all of you can see us, and there's an audio system so that all of you can hear us. Although that's a lot of technical things involved, there's a reason why it's a rectangular room, and for the acoustics to create here in a different way. So it's everywhere. All of us apply it at any given point. And I just wanted to give an example, like so I was mentioning about film, since it's his subject. I don't know if there are any Formula One fans over here, so I am a new generation Formula One fan. Obviously, everyone watches Netflix, and I hope some of you have at least watched Drive to Survive from Formula One. If for people thinking here that we don't make enough difference, that particular documentary increased the viewership of Formula One by 10 times globally, and it made it overnight a multi-billion-dollar business. So don't think that what we do is not important enough, and we are like staying in our city, staying in our place, doing something, doing a small sketch, and it's not important enough. You can always have much larger dreams. Like for me as an architect right now, probably creating residences and larger spaces. Tomorrow it can be airports or metros or whatever it is. So The ceiling for any of these fields is as high as it can get. So do not have that misconception that it is probably a smaller field, and I can already see some people probably leaving. So it's not as bad as you think it is.
Thank you so much. I would consider myself a very creative person. Based on the answers, I think I got some confidence that I can be a creative person. But frankly speaking, my story of where I am today is very different from the stories that I hear in the same industry, right? If at all we can have a little journey of each one of you, where you are standing right now. When we discuss career pathways, one thing that I want all the students to understand, there is no one career pathway. However, we ask journeys, we read autobiographies to get an inspiration, okay, this is also a possibility. But there is no single career pathway. Let us understand how it was for them, their journey, and my next question will also be on how it is right now. Okay, so ma'am, your journey a little bit.
Well, where I started and where I am today, it has absolutely no match. The only thing I was told when I was little is I was very creative. Idi mukku chana baga chestundi. Idi algada vepu chana baga chestundi. Idi dress chana baga veskuntundi. Mix and match chana baga chestundi. And I was trained that way, so I was doing the best rangoli in town, in the street, always winning good prizes. I was doing some good cooking. I was introduced to the kitchen when I was 9 years old. I hated it, but today I can say that all of you come home tonight, I can feed you. I have that kind of experience. And when people said that I could mix and match, and so I stitched my first complete dress when I was in 9th grade and wore it. Stitched another pair for my sister. So the life experiences which we had was amazing. I think we were very fortunate. We were very fortunate because we had very less. So we made the most out of the less. So to go and get a ready-made outfit was very expensive. So most of my generation knew a little bit of stitching, so we used to stitch our own clothes. Okay, so I was aspiring to be a doctor. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't get a seat. So I landed up in BSc Home Science, which I had no clue what it was. But the only thing I said yes to that course was because it had clothing as one of the major courses, textiles and apparel, which interested me. Of course, cooking I didn't like, so they had nutrition, and people thought nutrition was only cooking. They were not doing cooking, they were doing something else. But I signed up because they had apparel and textile. So I did the entire 3-year program only for textile and apparel. And I was acing it, 9.8 on 10, 10 on 10, that kind of thing, where I just braced it in mathematics. They had mathematics, they had economics, they had extension, something called agricultural extension. And by the way, I'm from the same university as the other, I forget his name, Viresh. So I am from the agricultural university. I did my graduation there and I did my PhD there. So I have a PhD in handloom. So when I was doing PhD, there was no PhD in design. Otherwise, I would have done PhD in design. So they didn't have design PhD. So I took up a more science route to it. So textile and apparel, so I did handloom. So what I knew about is I had a very good inclination to be a doctor, and I think today I would have been a very good doctor if I had been one. But the next thing was my passion towards fabric. I was good at stitching, I was good at embroidery, I was good at color, I was good at silhouettes. So I pursued that. And then I went on against my peers. There are only 4 seats in the university, and we had to write an entrance examination through the ICAR, which Viresh was mentioning. And 3 seats were reserved, only 1 seat open. Again, fortunately or unfortunately, coming from the forward cast. There are 10 people, running for that 1 seat. I said I'm not running for it. So I went to SNDT Mumbai, and their life changed. Now, sir was mentioning that school doesn't matter. Wherever you want to go, you can go and learn and all that. But for me, I think SNDT just opened floodgates. Because what I did as a course in Agriculture University to whatever I was doing at SNDT Mumbai was very close to fashion. Though they were very technical and teaching textile and apparel, it went very close to fashion. That was my introduction to fashion design. And from there on, all my life, I have done fashion design without a very formal degree in fashion design. And the places which rejected my application as a student, I have served those institutions as faculty. NIFT, I sent my application for NIFT when I knew. I have no clue till today where my application went. I did not even get an acknowledgement. I went to NID to write an entrance examination. They actually got me to NID with a second class fare. They used to pay a train fare to get students to write entrance. Those were the days. And I went there and I failed miserably in interview because they put a live man on the stage and asked me to sketch. And I had no perspective of that. So I failed. And again, I was trained. I trained people at NID. Well, after that, I have been in the fashion journey. I have set up design schools for the state. I'm very proud what I did, and I think I just followed my passion rather than what I had as an inclination to be a doctor. The second thing was passion, and I drove that crazily. And it's like people say passion as a word, and they say, oh, find your passion, be passionate. I think there is a next dimension to passion, and I have lived it 24/7. And today when I say, how do you sum up? I have done parallel worlds, design, education, and empowerment. I work very closely with weavers, and that's my next big destination. I will share with you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So yeah, Bits Pilani to film industry.
So before I start off, I want to know how many of you guys have an inclination towards going into film and are skeptical or doubtful? Should I be pursuing this? Is it even possible? And all that. Okay. Anyway, so wow, thank you guys. So I'll give a bit of my journey. I hail from Vizag. I have 2 elder brothers who are very good at what they do. Every time they go, they score very good marks. My eldest brother got into IIT Kharagpur, electronics and communication. I was in my 7th grade at that point of time. And the other brother I had, Sri Amogha, my second brother, he got into Bits Pilani, electrical again. Then he went there. So I was always doubtful about myself, my parents used to come home, and every time, for 1 year, every 6 months, they used to come home. And then while they are going, my mom used to make a lot of sweets. She used to give more sweets to them. And she used to say, you can stay, you're anyway staying in the house, so you can, So my inclination was always to go out of the house, And because I want to be respected like my brothers, I got through, I studied very hard. Unlike my brothers who can just go through a book and then write an exam very easily, I had to prepare 10 times over just to crack an exam. And I did. And I got into Bits Pilani. And as I went there, I always had this inclination towards stories. I learned Carnatic music when I was young. So there was an inclination of stories somewhere, a creative aspect somewhere, which I didn't recognize or didn't encourage at that point of time, when I was very young. And when I got there into Pilani, luckily in Pilani you don't have any attendance. You can just go to classes whenever possible. If you don't have to go, if you don't want to go to classes, you need not go to classes. That is how Pilani's curriculum was. So I was going to the classes, not as much as people would or parents would expect me to, but I had another passion developing within me. Like I was watching a lot of movies, like trying to. It was I come from Vizag and an Orthodox family, so when I went there, the exposure was too good. Like there were people coming from different parts of the country, and they were unlike me who wore slippers or like how we are, like when we were 17, like torn shoes, torn even when we are just going to the classes. These guys are already groomed, by 18 they're already groomed and they know how to conduct themselves, how they would sit in the class, talk to people, how they socialize. I don't know this myself. So I was trying to identify what their story would be. Like I was always trying to analyze and point out what their story could be, like where they have studied, what they were doing, what they were doing exactly at the time when I was thinking about my brothers and the laddus that in my house. I used to think about all this, and then stories and watching a lot of movies got me inspired. And I got placement in a software company. I was working in Chennai after Pilani. And then suddenly I used my Bits Pilani tag. I used to write to all the so-called who could understand what Bits Pilani is. Like there was Shekhar Kamla sir, there was Anish Kuruvilla who has directed Aoke Biryani and other films, and there was Devkata, whose reputation we know of, who made Prasthanam with Sharwanand, and all these guys who came from US, So I was mailing these guys with just a subject saying Bits Pilani, Surya, Bits Pilani graduate, wanted to work in films. This was how I wanted to pitch myself so that I don't know if I can work with a VP Vinay because I was told of a reputation in the industry saying this is a very harsh industry. I don't know if I could work with them. Though it has completely changed at this point of time after 10 years down the line. But I was very skeptical if I could work with them, if they could understand me where I'm coming from, or like if my inputs would be useful to them. So I was trying to pick out on few guys, few people who could understand me. I started mailing them, saying Surya, Bits Pilani and so. And Anish Kuruvilla, who has acted also in Pelichuklu and other films. You might be knowing him if you see him. He called me up saying you can come to the films. And then I got through. He said, okay, you can come join my team. And I joined. Later I went on to work with Shekhar Kamla sir. And then with Hanu Raghavpudi, who has made Sita Ramam. Then I went on to, like now I make my own film. But like though the question was of a different though the question came from a different place, what I would want to, like as I was recollecting the story, the only thing that I have like thinking about me was as I went through the story, there was self-doubt that was constantly occurring. Like there was always this self-doubt whether I could make it or not. As I talk to these young people, I'm sure that there will be self-doubt within yourself regarding should I be choosing this point? Should I be taking up career in films, career in art, career in medicine? Maybe I should have taken something else. The road may be much more smoother on the other end. There will be self-doubt, but stick with it. The only way forward is the greatest of the greatest would have had it. So the only way forward is like stick to it and then see what it goes. There is a story that will also be after where you are. So just stick to it and go forward and it will give you great food.
Thanks a lot, Surya. Actually, you come from a very typical, straightforward path, I guess.
Obviously,
You've done your BR and then became an architect. It's very straightforward.
I hope everyone can hear me. My stories are obviously not so accomplished as the panelists on towards my right. So it's a little intimidating, honestly, to be sitting with them and sharing the stage. But a lot of gratitude that I'm here. I start off from school. In the last conversation, I mentioned that I wasn't even the most creative one in the family. So that's a sad point to start with. But I guess one thing common which all of us will find in a lot of this design-centric stories is there's a lot of up and downs. There's a lot of going down and then fighting through it. We have heard a lot of those elements in both the stories. And one common word which is stayed throughout is passion for the subject. That is what makes you survive. So again, like how many of you are even looking towards architecture and interior design or any of these fields as a career? Is there anyone over here? Or you at least thinking about it? Okay, so I see 2 or 3 hands up. So for people who want to know more about the field, just like every design field, it is slow. To start with, but when you keep fighting with passion towards the subject, you always sustain, and the growth after being able to sustain in the field is beautiful. So coming back to the story part is, so I was shipped off to another city because I think my parents considered me a distraction for the more accomplished son. So like I ended up going to hostel to Chennai, and although like when I went there, I guess in 7th grade, I was complaining. I was like, man, like I'm losing all my friends here. This is not fair. And but when I go there, it struck me that for the first time as a teenager, I have freedom. I'm not answerable to my parents. I'm like, this is so cool. So the first day I called back and I'm like, I'm not coming back. This is what I'm gonna continue doing. But it was a typical school like any other school, but that was a big change because I was a very introvert kind of a character. I still am. I guess a lot of designers and artists, you'll find a lot of introverts. I'm sure there are a lot in the crowd also. There's nothing wrong with it. I feel the reason we are also a little introverted is we have a lot of imaginations. We are always thinking about something. We always create in our own heads. So coming back to the story, once my schooling finished in Chennai, which was great independence, it was character development and all of that. I always had this interest towards looking at buildings being built and critiquing the design of how they're coming up, looking at what the other countries are doing and looking at what people are doing in India. Always curious, going to sites as a student also. There was no reason for a school student to be on sites, but I just used to walk in. I used to see what they were doing, and that really interested me. And very early on, about 8th, 9th grade, I decided I'm not going to write engineering exams. So my focus is towards architecture. Many people told me, that this is the wrong choice. There's no money in the field. There are more chances you'll be successful if you opt for engineering. At least do engineering, and then you can get into design. There's always this, right? But I decided that I'm not going to write engineering exams because I knew for a fact I was going to be miserable. Got through architecture. Again, wasn't a great student in school, always into the extracurriculars, culturals, music, sports. Education was always probably 4th or 5th in my priority also. But once I got through to architecture, got back to Hyderabad and did my schooling over here, this was a sudden dive into the field itself. All my dreams about how the field should be. Again, it is not the same. Education is not the same like what the field should be. So it is a very mentor-driven field. Like I'm sure, like even both the panelists on the right will agree to what I'm telling. That design as a subject itself, it's so important to keep yourself surrounded with the right people. Even though you're in the greatest of the institutes, you're in the greatest of the spaces, it doesn't matter if you're not surrounded by the right people. If you have the right mentors in place, you are going to go places. So I was lucky enough post college to join one of the best architecture studios in Hyderabad at least. His name is Sudhir Reddy. He's a pretty well-known name, and that completely changed my look towards the field. And that 1 to 2 years was enough to much more than what I learned in education. And very weirdly, although my passion was always with architecture, like Niklesh was telling, the story is a little different. I represent a company called Juxtapose Creative Services and Spaces. We are not just an architecture interior studio. We initially started off as a design incubator, a co-working space for designers, because we felt the lack of design culture in the city, especially for architects and freelancers and designers. Unlike other cities, I wouldn't say Hyderabad is the best place to study or practice, but it's getting there. It's getting much better. The new generation is doing better. I'm sure your generation will take it to the next level. So it's in terms of the future in architecture and design, it's great because at the end of the day, as a country, the percentage of designers and architects, I was just looking at a stat before coming down to the talk. We have one architect for every 25,000 people in the country, which is very less compared to the Western countries who have about one for every 2,000, one for every 3,000. So to keep it in numbers, there is 10x growth we are looking at. But at the same time, we're still considered a developing economy, and our GDP is still around $2,000-3,000 compared to $30,000 of the Western economy. So when you look at numbers itself, it's going to get there. When the middle class societies will start coming out, lower class incomes will start coming out, and when they have more money to spend, they will start putting money into things like design, architecture. People would want to look better. People would want to conduct themselves better. People would want a better lifestyle, a better space to live in. So all this is going to trickle down. So coming back to the story, I'm sorry I'm taking a little longer than what probably I'm given in terms of time, but we started a co-working design space in 2016. We were 2017. We were right out of college. Just finished our internship as a junior architect in the studio for about a year. And we had a lot of self-doubt when we were starting that, me and my friends, that we are so young, why are we even starting the business? And we are trying to tackle a problem which has never been solved in the city, and probably it's not been solved even now, but we have taken baby steps towards it. So we started the space and we got really good response over the next 1 year, where we were able to conduct a lot of events. We suddenly recognized there's so many freelancers in the city of similar age groups are facing similar challenges, and that space acted as an incubator for people to grow out of. But sadly, COVID happened, and then the co-working spaces weren't making sense anymore. People suddenly realized that you can work from home. Why do I need a co-working space? So that was going back towards our services part of it. And now we are a successful studio, about 25-30 teams, and we're doing about 20 odd projects in architecture and interior design, and it's going good. But coming back to what I would advise out of all of this is keep your eye on the passion, because it is a very passion-driven industry. Fight for it, and I'm sure you're going to go places. But if this is not a passion-driven thing, I myself won't advise it. You might as well go into something which is probably has a better pay, or something more, something which gives you more chances of success in terms of money. But if it is your passion to get into architecture and interior design or any other design subjects, go for it. The future is bright. There's no doubt about it. We're just getting, as a country also, we're moving towards that growth. We're seeing about 6-7% of growth consistently. So the numbers say that all of us are going to do well. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Just to keep it time in mind, what I would do is I would take some question. Anybody who has any question towards the panelists, we have an architect, we have a design head. She can talk on all the aspects of design, and we have a filmmaker who is actually an engineer. We will take some questions if anyone has questions, and meanwhile I'll also ask questions from the panel. Anyone has any question? Yes.
Options available. I'm not referring fields. I'm just looking for the academic courses and the entrance exams that would fall into this.
For which stream, sir?
The same panel which we are talking about. Design, visual communications,
Okay.
and
So,
and the like.
Career paths from this. Did I understand it right? Okay, cool.
I'm referring the actual overall.
Overall, the whole path.
Yeah.
Yes.
Design, visual communication, and the like.
Yes.
Parents who will have this question. In my career, I have counseled more parents than students, like English. Now, when students come to design, they're very clear. They're very clear that they want to do design. So there's no need for me to spend time with the student as to what would you learn and other things that I've done homework. So I met somebody during lunch, and she told me that she's been aspiring to be in fashion design since she was in 4th grade. So that's how early they decide. So it could be a movie that inspires them. It could be the next door, fashion designer. It could be an actress, whatever it is. Or maybe the whole point of I don't want to be an engineer, but I want to be, in a very creative engineering field. So they would opt for product design, right? So as quickly as 4th grade or 5th grade, they are nurturing this part. So as parents, I would request you to give that space. There is no need for the parents to be apprehensive and scared. Some of the parents would come literally, flabbergasted, and they are like, "Oh my God, how can my child think about design?" We are a family of engineers, we are a family of doctors, we are a family of lawyers, and how can this be, happening to us? So you have to make them sit down and give the entire story. But any stream like commerce, MEC, BPC, NPC, design takes everybody. I think for architecture it is important that they have a math too. But a lot of other designing programs like fashion design, product design, visual communication, some colleges of interior design ask for math. There are some colleges which don't care. So you can look up and start preparing accordingly. Now I would say that why go through this MPC, BPC circus when you know that you're going to be in design? So why not take a lighter course, prepare yourself in the right direction for design? Why don't you get an experiential learning somewhere? Why don't you go for a sketching class? Sketching is, it is not very compulsory, but it will help you. As a designer, it will help you to, kind of create better. So if somebody is nurturing that, I think let us not put them through this grind of MPC, BPC, and let them go through MSET and what sets, all sorts of sets are there. And finally come down full circle and say, what, my child is going to a private school to design. But if you're aspiring to be in design, there are the best schools in the country, which gives you the best design curriculum. There are other private institutions and universities as well. I have worked with most of them, and I would suggest aspire to the best in the country. If you don't get the moon, at least you will end up in the stars. So aspire for the best, and then take it from there. And it's a fantastic journey. It's like you are on a perpetual holiday. You are doing what you want to do, and as Darla was saying, if this is your passion, please take it. If it is not your passion, then you will say, "Oh my God, I was not expecting it to be research oriented." Design is also research oriented. You need to do a lot of groundwork. You need to go into the rural ecosystems to look at rural problems and design something. Or if you're doing interior design, you have to go onto the field. You have to measure. You have to be in the heat and dust. So if you're thinking that it's going to be only classroom and you will have to sit at the computer, AC lab and all that, it's only CAD, no. Okay, so prepare, and it's a serious curriculum, and it's a fantastic time ahead. So yeah, thank you.
When it comes to filmmaking, I'm a writer director myself, and filmmaking is not just about the aspects that are involved, or not just one as such, right? You call 24 crafts. You have music, you have lighting, you have art, you have costume, you have everything. You have different kinds of art put together, and then the product is something that comes out. Like you have visual effects. So there are different aspects that are there inside filmmaking. So there are different schools that are there. But when it comes to filmmaking or the art as such, like for me, for whatever I generally think of, my school is the greatest of the greatest director that I think or I refer to as par excellence are greater human beings, right? So they have greater life, greater stories, and the way they talk to people or like involve people around them is something that is great. So that is the main school that is there for a filmmaker or a director or a storyteller. But to start with, that happens through life. Like you're 17, 18, then you become 30, and this all happens. But in an academic point of view, there are different schools that are in Hyderabad. Also in India, for example, you have FTA, Film and Television Institute of India, which is in Pune, which is pretty famous. You have it's been there for a long time. You have Naziruddin Shah sir, you have Kuriga group. Like all these people are from those schools, like Rajkumar Hirani. All these people are from these schools. And you have SRFTA, Satyajit Ray Film Institute of Television Institute of India, which is in Kolkata. These are prestigious schools that are there. They're also private schools. So you have to do your research correctly. And the question that my friend there asked is very particular, like in terms of filming. If you are into direction, there is a particular school. If there is a screenplay, there is a particular school. There is music, there is a particular school. So there are also different institutes like New York Film Academy, Prague Film Academy, outside of India, which generally people from here generally go to. But when it comes to like if you're thinking about direction or like story writing as such, what I would rather suggest is maybe you should stick to India. Rather, if you want to learn about something technical, maybe you should do a lot of research like cinematography, editing, visual effects. Maybe there are different schools in India as well as abroad. But if you're particularly thinking about writing and direction, maybe you stick to India because you have to like observe more about India and the roots that actually make you so that you can become a better film. Thank you.
So I think ma'am sort of covered a lot of the pointers on there. But coming to architecture, obviously, like the before panel, they were talking about alternatives of going into a diploma. Also, you have that as an option. Instead of doing your +1, +2, you can get into the field of architecture much before. But as a base, you need to have math for sure. Because it's a compulsory subject for architecture. Interior design, I'm not so sure. Like ma'am mentioned, it's optional. Some colleges follow it, some don't. But so for BR, you need math. I'm an LBC student myself. And you need to write your national entrance examination like NATA, and you have another centralized exam also for BR. I think all the IITs and NITs also have architecture, and the same examination is followed. Now they've centralized everything. I guess there's only one exam for getting into architectural institutes. Another very important point, like Sir was mentioning, is definitely study at least for a certain course in your country, because when you study in your country, they teach you how to design for your country. Like when you go to the West, you know how to design for that climate, for that context. You're not taught about material aspects of our own country. We have a very rich, material aspect for our country. We have different terrains, we have different climatological aspects all around the country. So definitely learn here. Although you want to do another course, say masters or something outside, you can go on and do that, because what I've noticed is colleges outside are much more research oriented. Unlike colleges in India, a little more practical over here. But there are really good colleges in India too, like some of the top ones in the world. Like you have Safar Ahmedabad, you have SPA Delhi, although it's a much older institute. They have really good colleges in Mumbai, Bangalore. Some of them are now coming up in Hyderabad also. So if you ask me, architecturally, culturally important cities in terms of education, where you want to be there, probably Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Bangalore. They're the best cities to study in as of now, although other cities are getting better. Because the culture there is, I would say a decade or so ahead than our city, but we're also getting there. I guess this answers the question.
Yeah. So basically, if you want to get into any of the creative fields, just to summarize, any group is fine. For architecture, NATA, JEE Mains Paper 2, or even in JEE Advanced there is a paper separately for that. Filmmaking, whichever background you come from, the more stories that you know, probably some subjects like sociology, psychology, if at all you pick up little of humanities, maybe you can go deeper into understanding why people do what they do. And design again, any stream is fine, NID, NIFT, these are the top colleges, they have different branches. You see these another entrance examination for IITs, NID has a separate entrance examination, NIFT has a separate entrance examination. In intermediate, for people who generally look for training and preparation, it's not just sketching and painting that you get trained in. Like we have a program at Amogha also called D-Axis. D-Axis is provided along with any group. We don't have that D-Axis students have to be from MPC or MPC. Even BIPC students can also take that, right? So they can come from any group. There's a lot of problem solving, a lot of critical thinking, a lot of understanding of materials that goes into the design as such. Next question. Yeah.
So what is the difference between modeling and acting, and which one is better? Difference between modeling and acting.
Has a lot of internalizing of things, right? Like you assess a situation that is fictional, and then you contemplate over it, you think over it, you internalize the situation, and then it comes through. It comes out. Like modeling is more like you're there for a product. You're displaying the product. Like in terms of like, suppose there is a oversized shirt. It needs to be fitting on a certain person. I'm a model. I'm a model for that particular shirt. This maybe Pam is a better person to explain about this. But when it comes to acting, what all I can say is it's more of an internalizing of the prospect. Like you are acting as if you are listening to me. You want the person next to you think that you have asked some question and you are listening to me, or you're acting to me. So if the camera is placed there, then it's a cinema. If you're on the stage performing to the audience, then it's a theater. So acting is more about like a fictional event, internalizing the process or the situation, and then performing it out loud. Ma'am is a better person to explain about.
Acting. Both are good, depending on what you want to do in life. And modeling is, as you very rightly said, it's about the product, right? So you are a canvas. You're showcasing somebody's creativity on your body, and it's a short-lived career. So it cannot be a permanent career option for you because you are young only once, and your body is young only once, and you are walking the ramp for somebody. So it has an expiry date. But acting, as you very rightly said, you have seen so many brilliant movies. It is about internalizing, it is about imbibing that character. So great actors have gone and lived with those, real life characters. Sometimes it's a biopic. If you have watched Nagar, you have seen Amir Khan. If you have watched the old movies, I know that there was a classic movie called Mandi where Shabana Azmi actually went and lived with these characters and imbibed. And they have actually put on weight, to carry that character. So it is much more than the character. It is like you are living that character for a while in your profession. And it's a more serious career option. So you graduate from being a young hero to character roles to whatever. So your actor life can be longer than model life. And for both these, there are schools. So you need to seriously pursue them. It cannot happen as a side hustle.
Yeah. I hope that answered your question. Yes. We have
mechanized due to the onset of technology. Like people have forgotten or lost the essence of drawing with a pencil or a paintbrush. So how do you think the advancing of technology has affected the fields of design and architecture and filmmaking?
Because architecture back in the day, like you literally have pictures where there's a huge hall of the state size sheets being drafted on for large projects. And right now we are doing all of that in a system. And I would say at this point, 80 to 90% of your work is digital. But I think it's very important, that's where education comes in. It's very important for education to retain, manual processes also in design by sketching and, by your first few semesters being all manually done. That's the reason colleges still do it, although every student now has a laptop. But I guess, we are living in an era where technologies are growing at a rapid pace, and we have to catch up to it. And I guess at the end of the day, all these things are tools. They don't define your skill. It's just a tool. AutoCAD is a tool. A 3D software is a tool. And once the software starts defining your skill, I think that is where it starts getting dangerous. But until and unless you retain these softwares and mechanized stuff as tools, I don't think the field is really going to get affected. But at the same time, we have another scary thing coming in now called AI. I don't know how many of you know about ChatGPT and about different AI products coming in. We also have AI for you can literally create an image by typing out what you want. I'm sure all of you would have tried it. So that is the scarier part in the software bit. At this point, I think there are regulations coming in for how AI should be used, but there is also the positive side to it of how AI can actually take humanity forward and opening up so many more other applications of design which we didn't even know about. Like we are probably still operating as humanity in a place where we know probably 1,000 ways of applications. AI is now going to open that up to 100,000, 200,000, a billion applications. So I think until and unless technology is being used as means to make our work easier and push boundaries of design farther, I don't think the mechanized part is going to overtake human intuition in design. But until then, I think we're safe.
Yeah, that's a very good question. We have this, as Nagar was saying, we have long debates whether pen and pencil is important, and whether we should be sketching so much, whether we have to do so many redos, right? So in foundation program in design, in 1 year, our faculty used to be ruthless. It's like you will do 100 pages of circles, and you will do straight lines. This side, up, down. So it is not an old school. There is a purpose to it. As he's saying, there has to be that human connect to design. So as he very rightly said, we used to have these huge papers in architecture. As a child, I saw some of those prints at home. My grandfather used to work for the Nizam. He was an architect there. So we used to see these huge papers, those butter paper kind of things, ammonia printed. Beautiful butter papers with those purplish blue lines. And that itself was a skill. Architect has a skill, but printing those ammonia sheets also was a skill, right? So we put students through rigorous pen and paper. Our students, like in the first foundation program, they literally, are like, oh, what is this? Is this design? So they would sit with a leaf, with a dried leaf, like for 4 hours, 8 hours, till you get the texture, the color, the form, the shape right. So you have to have a certain level of skill and of course the creativity, and then you can mechanize it. Then you can use the tool, then you can touch the mouse or your stylus or your pen, whatever. If you don't have the skill of the pencil going onto the paper, there is nothing like you can create out of the blue. The AI tool, what we are using to create beautiful pictures of us as Mata Saraswati or some model, It is not going to happen, if you are in design, that is not what we aspire to arrive at. We have the skill, then we'll put through a rigorous research, then comes the actual product sketching part of it, then comes the prototyping and sampling, and then the product. So there's a long way to go before you actually touch the mouse. So if you are good with pen and paper, you're already there.
How many of you have seen Karate Kid? Like, the annoying part where it keeps doing that, right? Like, and the kid keeps getting annoyed that why am I doing this every day in and out? And the final result of it is him actually, winning a bout or a fight. The manual part of it, the painstaking long hours you put into it is actually that. If you want to do that, you need to do this. And that's never going to, lose its importance. No matter how much technology is going to come in and help us to do better things, the basics always start from that.
And also the jacket part. He makes it do so many times, and that helps him get the stance right.
And also to add to what Jeff said, see Photoshop, Illustrator, this kind of tools after they've come near areas like Gauligoda or Balkampet, Amirpet and all, you have a lot of technicians who can do that Photoshop and Corel. They might say we have a designer, but they're not designers, right? They're technicians. They know how to use the tool. Maybe they can do one or two some invitations or something like that, but they might not understand the design language. They might not understand the elements. They might not understand the story behind it. That is where this learning comes. So, if you learn only the tool, you become a technician. If you learn the subject and then learn the tool, then you become a professional. Yeah. One last question we'll take. We're running out of time. Yeah.
So my question is, I'm interested in sketching, and how can I manage both sketching and my studies?
Which grade are you in now?
9th.
9th. Please have a seat. You have to do your 9th, you have to do your 10th. Are you in CBSE? State syllabus. Okay, so you have a lot going on. So my, I wouldn't say advice, but my thing is this. If you want to relax from your studies, sketch. So I had a student who had failed her inter-examination. She had, of course, the regular stuff, right? She had to go through the NPC and she hated maths and she failed maths. She came for the admission and she said, I'm writing a supplementary. I don't know, it's maths paper, I might flunk it again. So will you give me admission? I said, I'll give you admission for 3 months. You pass, you go further. You fail, you go back home. But then I said, here's the deal. You don't like math, but you do the foundation well in 3 months. And I promise you, you will pass the math. Because there is something in sketching, drawing and art which uses both sides of your brain. And that will help you focus in whatever you are doing. So if you're aspiring to get a 10, you will get a 10. If you use your time wisely, and please do not give nervous breakdowns to your parents, sitting with the sketchbook and drawing gods and goddesses and the peacocks and parrots all the time. But just take a break out. You cannot study more than 40 minutes. 40 minutes, I think it's a tall order. These days only 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, every 30 minutes you take a break of 15 minutes and do a short sketch, practice. There are a lot of online resources that are available as to how you can, if you're aspiring and preparing for design examinations, there are a lot of papers that are available. So you can very focused, sketching activity you can do. But sketching will not harm your studies. That much I can tell you. If your parent is around, please allow him to sketch. It will only fetch good marks. So please, if anybody is doodling, I would tell teachers also, kids who are doodling in the back bench or even if they are doodling in their question papers and textbooks. Please let them do it. It's the only healthy way to unwind. If you don't let them do that, they would be doing something else, and which might not be very creative.
Well, the final conclusion that I can give is whichever field that you're planning to go in the creative side, I would recommend you talk to people who are already in the field, get an idea, and this whole Safar 1.0 is also with the same agenda that you connect with them and talk to them and get a hang of it and not burn your hands getting into the field and then realize, oh, this is not something that I was thinking for, right? So keep that in mind. Thank you so much. I would give it forward to the MCC.
Thank you, sir, for taking out your time from your busy schedule to be with us here today. We would like to present you with a small memento of gratitude. I request Divya ma'am to give the mementos.